So we can see another participant, another speaker. So we are starting our discussions, our dear friends. I'm really happy to welcome you to the Moscow Finance Forum at our panel discussion, which is called to enhancing the accessibility and the quality of the social support by digitalization. We don't discuss quite often the improvement of social services, how we can use information technologies, ITs, to provide the qualitative provision of social services. There are a lot of obligations for the state. There are billions of rubles. But at the same time, as for the people who receive the social services, is just the quality of the services is just passable. So what are the ways between the state obligations and the social services? Something goes wrong in this way. And what we are doing, all the measures that we are taking are met differently by various people. We see how information technologies change the culture of consumption. We see that people today become more adapted to our personal needs, that these technologies even try to forecast our needs and desires, but not quite often such technologies are used in the social sector. We can say that IT technology is used in market-based economy, in different business sectors and services they provide. Is it possible in the state sector, in the social sector, to use information technologies in social services? Is it possible to make this revolution? Is it possible to make information technologies useful for our people? I think that it is possible. And the introduction of digital technologies is one of the goals of the national development goals set by the Russian president. So our task at the panel discussion is to understand how these social security measures, how to make them simple, like different services, how to simplify them, and how these services will help us. What solutions should we make to do that? So we have different experts, different speakers, and I will present them today. There is Anton Kochakov, who is the deputy minister of the Russian Federation, Mikhail Terentiev, who is the president of the All Russia Society for the Disabled, Roman Artuchin, the head of the Russian Treasury. It's not a voice show, so we don't have to choose a winner. Gulnaz Kadyrova, Deputy Industry and Trade Minister of the Russian Federation. Grigory Lekharev, Deputy Minister of Labor and Social Development. Anton Drozdov, the head of the Board of Directors of the Fund for the Social Insurance of the Russian Federation. And I will chair the discussion. I'm Olga Batalina. I'm the first Deputy Secretary of the General Council of the United Russia Party, and I'm the parliamentarian of the State Duma. To make our discussion more meaningful, because we have brought together different people involved in decision-making process, I hope that everyone is going to make specific conclusions from our discussions. We have decided to have a look at the problem through one of the examples. We have decided to have a look at one of the most important social services, which is the provision of technical rehabilitation equipment for the disabled people. Why have we chosen such technology? It's a great state obligation. We are talking about 31 billion rubles for this year and 35 billion rubles for the next year. We're talking about a large number of people who receive this service, particularly with such services provided as in-kind assistance, but at the same time we have a large demand from Russian disabled society. We receive a lot of requests from these people to improve the technology that they are using. At the same time, we decided to have a look at that social service, to understand how information technologies can be used to tackle such issues. So I give the floor to Grigory Lakharev. Grigory, could you tell us, you perfectly understand the situation, you see it from the inside. What is the demand for the technology and for the service? And could we tackle the issue by using information technologies? Thank you, Olga, for giving me the floor. Friends, there is an opportunity of providing technical equipment. There are two mechanisms, like in-kind assistance, when we provide technology for the disabled, but such mechanism is implemented through the bureaucracy, which sets out each step, each measure. Public servants usually choose what technologies will be procured and used by the disabled people. Also, the Russian Social Insurance Fund is involved in the process. There is the second mechanism. We understand the costs, that it's bureaucracy, and the choice is made by other people, not the disabled people themselves. Talking about the second mechanism, we're talking about the compensation. So the disabled buy all the necessary equipment that they need, and we provide the compensation after that. Because sometimes the technology is very expensive. As for the wheelchair, it's difficult to provide a price. It started from 18,000 rubles up to 600,000 rubles. We're talking about people who have impaired neck, who have different impaired parts of the body, which provides the use of various technologies. There is a serial wheelchairs where quality is important, but at the same time, the prices vary. We have 17% of the disabled people who have decided the compensation mechanism, so they buy the technology for themselves and receive the compensation. In October 2018, Vladimir Putin met with social organizations, with rehab experts and the disabled people, and Mikhail Terentiev raised the issue of developing another mechanism, which will not replace the existing mechanisms. It's a new one. We're talking about the provision of electronic certificates. Such mechanism is tested in various Russian regions, like Khanty-Mansiysk regions and Moscow regions. So the Russian president instructed us to study that experience. We understand that we didn't have at that time detailed federal legislation, and it was the initiative of the regions. It was a paper certificate. It looks like a letter. So when the person uses it, the producer, the manufacturer, doesn't receive any funds for using the technology, but the manufacturer will receive them later. So our team, which is present here in the home, particularly the Finance Ministry, the Federal Treasury, and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, have decided to develop the electronic certificate, which will help all of us to use different systems like electronic payment systems and other payment systems that control today budget systems of our country. And we would provide all these benefits to the disabled to make sure that these services are provided as simply as using a credit card. We see certain risks in using the proposed mechanism, and I think that these risks will be mentioned. The person using the new mechanism, they understand that they are dealing with a good manufacturer, with a reliable person, and we are living in the period of time where we cannot be experts in all goods that we are using. And the disabled cannot perfectly understand that the technologies that they use. That's why we need to provide them reliable information and catalogs of goods so that they would understand how much information a certain manufacturer can provide. We plan to phase in this mechanism quite carefully because the disabled people are quite a sensitive category of the Russian population. Up to year 2020, we will choose several regions where the mechanism will be tested. We believe that we should choose Russian regions that have a professional team of medical and social experts, where they have special centers, when they have programs, and the disabled people will have an opportunity to have a look at all these programs. Usually they provide a special showroom where major technologies are presented. We also want to use those regions that there are different indicators. We're also going to use different rehab programs. And we're going to spread the mechanism. And in the regions where the mechanism is used, should be quite enthusiastic towards providing assistance to the disabled people. Some regions have their own protection and social security measures. And they're going to use their payment system MIR, World in English. And they're going to use all other opportunities that we are going to provide. So you're going to create an electronic certificate mechanism, which is an additional mechanism to all the measures that you provide. It's an additional mechanism, is quite flexible, which helps people to choose suppliers, to choose certain individual technical rehabilitation equipment. Such a mechanism is suitable for people and is quite attractive for people. But what about the financial system? What about the Russian state? Will the Russian state benefit from the additional mechanism, or will it be another additional load for the budgetary system? First of all, I would like to welcome everyone at the Moscow Finance Forum. We appreciate your participation. We see a great audience in the hall. The first question that emerges, what is the role of the Russian Ministry of Finance? And I think that you have the wrong perception of the ministry's goal. We don't pursue a goal of reducing financial costs. It's not a goal for us. And this slide that you can see, I've just wanted to name a set of goals that the electronic certificate will give us, and I would like to provide the role where each actor will play. The electronic certificate, it's a targeted approach to each person. We have an end user of the state service. We understand that everything that is provided by the Russian legislation is carried out. We could follow another path, is the provision of funds to the bank card of the disabled person, but at the same time we won't fulfill the social function that the state pursues. So again, we're talking about the target assistance, the provision of assistance to the person in line with the medical program and in line with the medical analysis. The next thing is that the electronic certificate is the guarantee of quality. We're talking about different pharmacies and stores. We have two alternative products, the electronic certificate and marking. We're going to mark all services and goods. There is a closed list of services and goods that guarantee the quality of products and services, and they make sure that such products are genuine and true. So in this way, we will fulfill, we will guarantee the quality of goods bought by certain persons. The next thing is that the electronic certificate is quite a convenient tool of the advanced payment system. By using the bank card MIR mentioned by Grigory, the bank card actually is the main bearer of the electronic certificate. The person receives certain rights for buying one or another good that is provided after the medical expertise. So it's like buying other types of goods with a bank card. There are various additional procedures that are carried by the federal treasuries and other governmental entities, but they do not concern the end user of services. We will tell you about the mechanism of cooperation between the federal treasury and different facilities. The electronic certificate also controls the budgetary funds at all stages of the budget process. The first phase is planning of budgetary funds, of budgetary provisions. We perfectly understand the price of each rehabilitation item for a person. We see what goods are manufactured by one of the plants. We provide necessary budgetary allocations. There are also special post-control systems where we can control the bill, the checks, the code of the good that was bought by a certain person. So by using this system, we control the effective use of budgetary means at each stage, at the stage of planning, at the stage of payment, and the post-control stage, where we control the effective use of budgetary means. And the most important part that I need to mention that this scheme is universal. This scheme can be scaled. We can launch such suitable service for the rehabilitation equipment, so we can use such system for another goods. As for the national project of Russian healthcare, we are going to provide electronic prescriptions. So by using this instrument, we can provide different medications online. Such instrument is universal today. It will help us to optimize state costs and costs that will be suffered by a person in receiving the state social state. Next slide, please. So, talking about the new model, what this model will give to a citizen. As of today, we see that it takes 70 days for the disabled person to receive any rehabilitation technology equipment if there are no backlogs, if there are no errors in the system. But if we use the electronic certificate mechanism, it will take 10 or 14 days. So a citizen will receive a notification on the smartphone that he received an electronic certificate on the bank card, so he can go to any facilities that has a license for manufacturing rehabilitation equipment. A person can go to the facility and buy the necessary technology. At the same time, a person has a choice of technology. But here we need to mention that the technical features of technology are controlled. For example, the system will not allow the disabled person to buy those technologies that don't fit them. And if a product is too expensive, they will have to just pay extra.
What are the conveniences? to receive the service as you go shopping. So you use your plastic card, you pick up your rehabilitation tools, and you go home. The stores have all the relations with the federal treasury, extraterritorial approach. As of today, we can see that when our citizens would like to buy rehabilitation means they're limited by the territory where they reside. So there is a possibility to acquire a product only on the territory where they reside. The electronic certificate implies a possibility to pay and buy a product in any territory or from any territory of the Russian Federation. As for possibility for selection, I wouldn't dwell on that. This is something what Grigory was talking about. So when you seek for reimbursement, you have to buy rehabilitation means and then take a loan and then provide reimbursement. And also I would like to emphasize sometimes there are problems with documentation, and sometimes it may happen that people are not reimbursed at all. However, this system will eliminate any possibility of not receiving the reimbursement, because here there is direct interaction between the federal treasury and the store for the products that were certified by medical expertise. So what does this model provide to producers? First of all, they have a targeted audience that is able to pay. So we understand that there are the guarantees on the part of the state, and that shapes a very good understanding of the number of disabled people that should buy this product. Another thing, the access to this system will be given to all organizations that are in line with licensing rules. So there will be no tenders, no closed procedures whatsoever. So as we design this system, we believe that any enterprise that is in line with rules and regulations in the Russian Federation will be eligible to participate, to be included in this system. The only thing is that you have to use a plastic card to make the payment. Then the stores and producers will be reimbursed for the product they sell on the next date after the payment takes place. Right now, the payment to the stores takes place in 60 days after the payment is done, because first the list is formed, then the social insurance, social security foundation checks the list, then they prepare invoice, and only after that the payment happens. And that takes between 40 to 60 days depending on the region. What is another thing? These stores will be able, and by the way, this is only a possibility that is going to be designed, but it's not going to be introduced at an initial stage. So a disabled person with the health limitations will be able to order shipping of the product to his home and will be able to pay with a card at home as the product is delivered. So here we provide convenience for the disabled people, and also there will be no intermediaries between the producer and between the end user. And once again, I should say that commercial companies will have to provide their catalog of products, a list of suppliers. So far, it's going to be a separate list, and producers will receive information about potential list of users. So thanks to the personal accounts, to the portal, we will have a clear understanding of a list of suppliers, list of products, and this information will be provided for free to the end users, disabled people, in other words. So I wanted to characterize all the advantages of this system from the standpoint of commercial companies, end users, and producers. Thank you very much. Since we are discussing the specific algorithm from issuing the electronic certificate up to the payment method, let us go through this journey together with an individual. So where does the journey of a disabled person start? First, he gets an examination, and he gets information about his individual rehabilitation program that describes rehabilitation means that are prescribed to him or her. And this is the responsibility of the state. Then, if we follow the new scheme, what happens next? By having this certificate, it is implied that the person will submit an application for receiving rehabilitation means. He goes to multifunctional center or through the social security center or through any other public organization. So what will he need? He will need a copy of his passport, application, social security number, also bank details bank card details, mere bank card details. Now the disabled person needs to understand that he needs this particular bank card, and also his phone number has to be provided. And who provides social security support? There is a specific agency, and this agency needs to enter information about the disabled person into the central database. And this is where the retirement fund starts being engaged. And I would like to ask Anton Drozdov to give us more specific information. So what happens next once the information about the disabled person is entered into the central database? Thank you, Olga Yurievna. I welcome all forum participants. I would like to say a few words about this system, about the database, because I believe that here I need to give more prolific information. Why did we set up this base? Well, our panel is dedicated to increasing accessibility of the support system to the citizens. The information is available to all public agencies. In order to operate data more efficiently, we decided to create the uniform information environment, and we have social security number as identification number, and this system gathers information from 35,000 providers of information, and one of the types of information we receive is type of data is the data about the disabled people, and that information is provided based on electronic certificate. So we have a classifier at the moment, and right now, thanks to it, the disabled people are eligible to receive goods and rehabilitation products. Right now, the information, once the central database will be introduced, this information will be available for the central treasury, for the retirement fund, for all social agencies, and we can check the data just to see whether the disabled person is eligible for this information, for this rehabilitation means. So we check whether the person has a right to receive this support, and then we pass the information to the Federal Treasury, and Federal Treasury will make the payment and will get back to us providing information about this. Okay, so the retirement fund checks the right of a citizen. We verify the information regarding the status of a disabled person, and we move on to the next stage of our model, to the Federal Treasury. Roman, tell us what is going to happen at your platform. We are as far as this stage. Hello, and thank you very much, dear Olga, dear colleagues. Yes, we are facing a quite a daunting task. I have one slide here that shows the number of participants that we need, all the stakeholders that we need to bring together. And we understand that the inquiry on information should be approved by the cashier. How long does it usually take? 1, 2, 3 seconds. What should we bring and who should we bring together within these 3 seconds? Actually, that is the central base, the system of payment. And what is an electronic certificate? It is basically an electronic registry, and basically this is a registry that fixes the number of the mere bank card, and also here we also check the information on the eligibility of the disabled person and his or her right to get the reimbursement and rehabilitation means. And within 2 or 3 seconds, we have to check all this information. How can we fulfill this task? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, we don't want to create a parallel quasi-payment system. You need to use means that are already available, and electronic government has done a great deal in this regard. We have the system of interagency electronic interaction that connects all the public agencies. We have the electronic budget system. What is the advantage of it for us as a treasury? We de facto is a payment agent for all municipal agencies, for our Social Security Fund, for other public agencies, and we have access to accounts of our recipients of the budget. And within 3 seconds, once again, what should we do? We can move on to the next slide. Our end consumer gets to the cashier. At this point, there is an inquiry to the system of an electronic certificate, and there is an information from the central database. Then we also check, verify natural indicators, and then the commercial company gets the confirmation, yes, that this person is registered and he's eligible for receiving the product. And what happens? There is an exchange of data. Of course, the company will not receive the money immediately. We, as a treasury, we block the limit. Block the limit on the account of the payer, that is the Social Security Fund, and then on the on the next working day, we will transfer the payments. So here, of course, this is a very quick methods of payment, and here we provide the entire technological infrastructure within the framework of electronic government and electronic payment system. Well, let us get back to our disabled person. So how can the disabled person understand that he already has a right, that he's eligible for using the system? You're right. Once he or she submits the application, we will enter a record in the database, and that we as a treasury are an invisible player for the patient, and there should be one point of entry for the patient, and this is a Social Security Fund. Well, when all algorithm worked, the consumer, the patient, will receive a notification, a text message that will say that a certain amount of money was transferred to his bank card to buy a rehabilitation tool, and he will be able to pay for it by using an electronic certificate. What happens next? May I give a small comment? We are talking about electronic certificate, and we have described you the design of this system, but already the medical expertise agency and the Social Security Fund interact very actively, and at this point, it is very important for a patient, for a consumer, to decide whether he would like to get cash as a form of reimbursement, or he would like to get the money bank transfer so he can pay for the product, and but that will and then the patient, only patient, will choose what kind of reimbursement he would like to receive. Yes, he will be able to choose, but we will not be able to make the next step without Social Security Fund, and the role of it is very significant, because when we talk about technical rehabilitation means, and we are almost at the doorway of a store, we need to receive a catalog. So yes, you understand as a disabled person that you need to buy a certain rehabilitation tool, and here he is at a doorway, but you cannot get inside if you do not have the catalog. Well, Andrei, tell us, what is your mission in this great design? Yes, we are just one of the components in this structure, and Andrei was right by saying there is a team that develops a large mechanism, and specifics of this mechanism is such that the consumer does not have to understand all the specifics, and catalogs are different. Here I will not surprise you. There is a catalog that you receive by post, or there is a catalog that you can see in any store, like let's say you come to the automobile dealer, but then you need to understand who tested the product, who verified that this is not a toxic product, that it protects your rights and health. There was an anecdote that was told by my friend from the United States that once so people in the United States bought a product from Denmark, a house that turned out to be very small. It was like a toy house, and therefore it's very important to give reference to dimensions, to the size of the product. So our catalog includes information about producers, and the producers will have to provide all data about the product. Also, you have to provide information about the companies that provide repayment and maintenance services, and information about the payer that can guarantee the quality, and this is certainly the government of the Russian Federation. So the discussion was based on the following. Producers that produce the product must provide you with quality certificate, and that means that the catalog has to be approved by the Ministry of Industry and Trade. As for maintenance and repair services, these companies have to be approved also by Ministry of Industry and Trade and Surveillance Agency, and also medical services. And we also are engaged, and catalog, and this is just a standard catalog. If you flip through it, you will see that it looks quite ordinary, but it consists of 3 sections. First, has to do with federal law number 44. This is a general classifier of the product on economic types of activities. So we need to know, to verify that this product was produced, that it exists, and so on. As for the second,
it deals with the digitalization by the Ministry of Healthcare. And now let's have a look at goods. A wheelchair. You can see it's a large sign for any Ministry of Economic Development, but for a person it's just a regular wheelchair, just a regular wheelchair that could be used by children. And you can see the blue. It provides the information about the size and all other details about the wheelchair. Usually people go and say, oh, it's black and white. But I have a question. Can I have a choice? This green part, you can see this green mark, and it's a guarantee of quality. Because we have started from the details and finished with the consumer. Because if a consumer sees a wheelchair in the roster, so he can use various manufacturers, because these manufacturers meet the requirements of the state rehabilitation program. And so the client has a choice. So what's the novelty of the system? We, as the Ministry of Finance, will guarantee that we will fulfill all the state obligations for the disabled people. So here we need to specify the price. Maybe we're going to have some auctions or tenders about that. But as for the limb parts, it will be difficult. Some of you are controlling the car. You have no difficulties in maintaining your vehicle. You just go to the maintenance and repairing service room, and they'll tell you what's wrong with the car. Because why it happened? Because someone made all maintenance services to add all the details about vehicles in one database. So we are going to provide a catalog, and its feature is that we are going to provide detailed information about parts of rehabilitation technology. The ministries will know what technologies are certified, what items were replaced. Because if the disabled uses a broken wheelchair, he will break his leg, for example. So again, consumers vote, and they say that I want this one. Because the disabled persons won't have any difficulties. They won't have to wait for 70 days. It will take maximum 14 days. And this catalog of rehabilitation equipment will be made by all actors of the process, because we need to make sure that goods are certified. We need to make sure that disabled persons are protected. We have started the process, and we are still working on it. Thank you very much. I need to specify 14 days since the disabled submitted an application to the Social Medical Assessment Commission. So if you have carried out all the necessary procedures before, it will take even 1 day. You know, these words don't show the whole picture of problems. Because suppliers might not be reliable, because consumers don't see everything. They will just say, oh, the Russian state doesn't like me, they don't care about me. But we just want to make sure that all these services are provided. So we're talking about the commercial, the network of commercial companies, because if we don't establish such a network, if we don't make it a part of the system, then the electronic certificate will be useless. So I ask Gulnaz Kadyrova to provide information about the certificate, about the network of commercial and maintenance companies that might be involved in the process, and what can help to make these companies part of the process. Thank you, Olga. First of all, I would like to welcome all participants to the forum. I understand that here I'm talking to professionals, and I need to point out certain details that are important for financial experts. We are a large project team, and we have tasks that are broader than problems. that we're discussing at the moment, our final goal is to ensure that social services are of the best quality. By using the state payment system, we will reduce the deadline, and we're going to make sure that consumers will receive advanced, innovative technology, up-to-date products, and the market provides a wide range of such products. And what we're discussing today is a part of the strategy for the national development, and its task is to provide quality, accessible technology for end users. And as for securing a payment, we need to prevent the situation that the system might hedge. First is the adequate use of means provided to the consumer, and the second task is not doing harm to the consumer, because we are talking about medical equipment. It was mentioned by the colleagues because the catalog should provide the safety for consumers. Andrei Kigi was talking about different parts of the puzzle. We're talking about systems that have already been established, but here we need to bring these parts together. We're talking about catalog provided by the Social Insurance Fund, the catalog provided by Association of Manufacturers. In the lead up to the forum, we have tried to give a thought to what items could be included to the electronic catalogs, what technical features will be used in the catalog. So what are the results of our work? First of all, we're talking about the parameters. The mass of the user is used 100% times when there is an order for the technology. As for the size of the equipment, it's used 75%, but as for the wording of the size is different. There are state standards that say the mass of the user. Some manufacturers say the maximum load, the maximum mass of the consumer, the maximum load on the sitting plate. So a commission should verify the product bought by the disabled person, and we need to make all these parameters and characteristics universal to make it comfortable for manufacturers, taking into account the fact that manufacturers will receive all the funds and money for the technology that they produce. And it's particularly useful in terms of controlling the adequate use of budgetary means. So today, all actors of this big process, participants of this process, which is the introduction of the electronic certificate, should take this all into account. But at the primary stage, I would like to start with those technologies that pose the least risk to the consumers, like zero-level risk and first-level risk. I think experts might understand what I'm talking about. We're talking about goods that are widely accessible in various shops and pharmacies. We're talking about some goods and technologies are accessible online. So we're talking about comfortable connection and communication without any risks for consumers. Thank you. Now I have a question for the Federal Treasury, for Roman Artukin. So a person goes to the catalog, he likes technical means, and he have chosen one of them, and he decided to pay for it. So what's going next? What the shop will do after that? Well, what will consumer do? So what are the processes behind it? So what is going to happen next? Usually the same as after the person takes the technology button. Instead of in addition to the payment, we need to make sure that this technology fits the consumer. We need to have a look at the price of the technology. So we need to receive from the national payment system and information from a manufacturer that they have a person who wants to receive this piece of equipment. We go to the electronic register who has all the information about this person, number of its plastic card, and we need to make sure that the information in the electronic catalog is the same as the characteristics of the technology that this person wants to buy. For a person, it would be like a quasi-payment, because means will go to the manufacturer the next day after the person buys the equipment. It looks like a budgetary bank. But before the payment, we will provide an electronic certificate, and we will grant a right to buy the product. And after we have confirmed all the information, the person receives the product. So the person should be adjusted to the entire process, yes. But is it a difficult process? For commercial companies, they are ready for that, because we have organized some meetings with them. All services should be invisible, because consumers shouldn't know that their requests are just somewhere in the internet, in the open access. So this commercial companies should provide all the information, should make sure that all the technologies meet the requirements of the electronic catalog. We should also draw a red line in providing the equipment to the disabled community. Because we provide the electronic certificate, we provide the electronic catalog, the person wants to buy a certain product from the catalog, there is a special number that is reflected in the central database, and this number, this crypt is provided to federal bodies, because without such code, the system won't work. I have a question to the participants of the discussion. Just imagine that I'm a consumer. I receive a text message to the smartphone, and I have an opportunity to buy a product. But where should I go? What shop should I visit? Every shop that can take payments through the plastic card mirror, or should I know something else? You should go to the commercial company that is connected to our system. How should I know about that? If you go immediately to any shop, and if this company is not ready, if its system is not harmonized with our electronic catalog, but again, we can request from them. Just we need a code of the product from our catalog. So all these commercial companies, and they should connect their systems. They should connect to us. I think it's the next step, because everyone present here understands that we have a single electronic catalog. We public servants call it a catalog of electronic services and goods of the Russian Ministry of Finance. But we are going to refine the system together with Yandex, and if we are successful, we are going to expand the catalog to receive feedback, because again, the disabled community needs quality products, and those who receive benefits in using the system, they will provide all the information. They will become part of the state portal. For example, the disabled person wants to order a taxi through Yandex Taxi. They can have the same app, and they can find a company that sells the equipment. Well, I hope that you are going to carry it out quite soon. I would like to add, there will be 2 phases in providing the service to the disabled. At the first phase, we will provide some information in the central database. We will provide all the details where the disabled can go and buy the product. But it's a pilot project. I think that we're going to provide certain register of suppliers that will be accessible in the internet. And I think that this information will be widely accessible to everyone. You understand that we have a single information system, information space, where we have personal accounts to different state portals. So the citizens will have all information in personal accounts. So on face-by-face basis, they will receive information where they can buy, for example, a wheelchair. All this information will be provided online. So again, we will guarantee the access to this kind of information. So Mikhail, I have a question for you. So you represent a large community who are going to use this new mechanism in certain regions. What do you think about the models? What are the risks? Where we need what questions we need to refine? First of all, good afternoon, everyone. I think that the benefit of the system, the advantage of the system, is that the provision of the technical rehab systems, I think that it's not mostly the fight against bureaucracy. It's just commercial companies, they will look for their customers because it's an opportunity for suppliers to provide their best products. But there are certain risks induced by the systems. And today we discuss this system. If we introduce the electronic catalog and develop it, then those manufacturers who make rehab systems, they will make sure that their advanced best products are mentioned in the mentioned in the electronic catalog. But also, we need to make sure that social medical assessment commissions should examine these technologies. They should understand the functions of each product. They shouldn't see it just as a simple wheelchair. They should understand it in a detailed manner. Because the introduction of the electronic certificate and the introduction of electronic catalog should be carried out in parallel. And another important thing is who is going to update the information in the electronic catalog. Because we're going to add some new items and new functions of items.
And whether the system is going to be a bureaucratical one or not, we know in order today to get a quality certificate, you may need up to 1 year. And this system has a potential for growth and development because it's going to be in line with all modern developments, and especially it's relevant for the manufacturers who would like to find the end consumers for their products. And It is important because a disabled person needs to be able to find a rehabilitation tool that will help him lead active lifestyle. And I remember when my spine was injured back in 1996, I got my first wheelchair only in 1 year. An adjustment of my body, of my mind was quite traumatic. It took a long time, and then I had to adjust to the new reality. But I also know the case when the girl lost her upper limb. She did sports and she joined Paralympic team, and then she started participating in Paralympic game. And the interval between the loss of a limb and joining the Paralympic movement took only half a year, what means that she joined the rehabilitation procedure very quickly. So I believe that the catalog will be very helpful for socio-medical assessment system and will provide the rehabilitation tools that will enable a patient to adjust to new life circumstances in a quick manner. And another thing I'd like to outline, that is the new role of the surveillance agency of consumer goods. For this agency now there's a new vision, and now they have to be engaged in the control on observing the human rights and preventing their violation, because there is a parameter on checking the quality of the product, and here the surveillance agency has to play quite an active role in their surveillance process. I believe that the new mechanism will allow to solve the present issues related to purchasing of the products, reimbursement for those products, something what the previous speakers were talking about earlier, and hopefully they will eliminate these problems. Also, per law on the social protection of citizens, the social rehabilitation tool should be delivered to the end consumer, and this is how present tenders are won, because again people expect to receive home delivery. The electronic certificate so far does not provide you with this option of home delivery. Once this system is up and running, the financial bodies are going to control this aspect, because there is a cost of good, but there is no cost of shipment per se. And you see the cost of shipment is equal to a certain amount for Moscow, but for the Republic of Yakutia it will be manifold more. So you need to regulate this process, or you need to receive an agreement with the Post of Russia, or come up with certain rules, because there's a risk that a disabled person will be imposed certain services when you see a disabled person resides somewhere in Far East in the city of Khabarovsk, and there's a supplier that may bring the product from the same region or from the other end of the country, from the city of Kaliningrad. So you need to keep a close eye on those issues to take away bait-face actors. And at medical social assessment, during medical social assessment, the individual should be provided full information about receiving money or receiving an electronic certificate. And if an individual takes an electronic certificate, then there should be a list of providers, a list of suppliers provided to the individual, bona fide ones. And it's very good that there can be a link to online stores, if we streamline this process, if it is transparent enough, and we can indeed can track the shipment of a proper good, then this system will indeed work well. Thank you very much, dear friends. I know that here we have the representatives from some manufacturing companies, and I know that some of them are going to be, of these products are going to be sold in retail segment, but these are not sales per se. This process serves a very important social goal, and a lot will depend on the pilot. And I ask the representatives of the companies that manufacture technical reputation means to say a few words. May I give a proposal? Ivan Klimachov is here. He is the head of Stock Audio, and he has 200 service centers across the country. He has been in the market for a very long time. Can you give him the floor, please? And he already has experience of working with certificates in the Moscow region. How long have you been in the market? We celebrated our 25th anniversary. Nikolai Ivanovich, can you turn to the audience? Dear Olga Yurievna, esteemed colleagues, I cannot turn my back to you, my colleagues, especially given the fact that I have worked with many of you for 25 years or so. I believe that transition to a certificate is a topic that has been discussed for a number of years, and we, on the part of business, would share the best practices from other countries as well. We have over 200 affiliates across the country. We employ over 2,000 people. This is a social business, and we take on responsibility, and we understand that the transfer will be quite challenging, but we will support this initiative. Why? Because tenders or tender procurements are very speculative and abusive, and think of hearing devices or any other devices. We always either deal with good faith or bad faith competition. But what is important here? One of you said that at a certain age, a disabled person will be free to choose. So you can buy it on your own, or you get cash, or you receive you receive an electronic certificate. We work with people that have hearing loss problems, and very often we talk about people of senior age, and they are not able to make a good choice. People that choose wheelchairs, they can make a good choice, but not people that suffer from hearing loss at a later stage of their life. As manufacturers, we need to plan our production process at our service centers. We need to have a certain stock, because here one of you mentioned that a person should be able to buy a product within 3 minutes, but we need to have this product available at any point of sale, be it Kaliningrad, Kamchatka, or the Crimea Peninsula. We need to have a sufficient stock. So I think it would make sense to provide for a gradual transition. In that case, we will be able to plan. It is very important, because you see, as for spare parts, you have to buy them, and you need to take loans to buy the stock and to have a certain capital available for those purposes. Another aspect that is very important as well, something what Mikhail talked very well about, that is a price-making policy. If one of the criteria will be an auction that already could have taken place, that can be very current situation based for this or the other region. For Moscow, the price can be around 15,000 rubles, when for the city of Yaroslavl it will be 4,000 rubles. The criteria tender cannot be used as a criteria. There should be a different mechanism. And price making process is a very sensitive, even painful subject. So businesses have to provide here their professional assessment. Another important thing, something what Mikhail was talking about earlier, we are not they are not sitting idle. We are innovating new products. We are registering them at registering them with the government, and we want these innovative products be in line with the global trends. And it does not mean that this product is going to be more expensive, but the new product can possess new beneficial characteristics. And the list of products, of course, has to be updated. For instance, we use new materials for wheelchairs, and at some point, the Ministry of Industry and Trade finances the research, and the wheelchair is produced of new materials. And then how long will it take it to include the new wheelchair into the list? 5 years? It will not work. So as you develop your list of rehabilitation means and tools, you have to be quick and agile, and catalog has to be updated quite fast. We, as manufacturers, as an innovative company, want this process to be fast, something what has to be taken into consideration. Other than that, I must say that it is a very good project, and I wholeheartedly support it. 3 important points very voiced, and let us start with the foundation, social insurance fund. Well, as Roman said, the government or the state for you is like a Pandora box. You love it, but you don't know why exactly. Actually, the Ministry of Trade upgrades the catalogs on a regular basis, so it's not going to take once every 5 years. Absolutely, we have updated our classification recently, and there is a legislative act related to it. Of course, we will have to update catalog, and it has to be transparent when it comes to the users of it. Of course, it will be updated based on a discussion between the end users and manufacturers. We are social agency. We work not with social innovations. We work with social we work with a registered product that has to be offered to the end consumers. If you register the product, we will help you to introduce it on the market, and the electronic system must see all the new products and must respond to them quickly. Yes, and there are 2 things here. One thing is to increase at least a catalog of products, and this is exactly what we are talking about. We say that let us increase the list, something with the products that so far are not covered, are not reimbursed, because there are certain limitations as of today. Another thing is when we talk about the existing products that are reimbursed, but there is an upgraded product, and you have to include it as well. And here there are 2 mechanisms. As for providing guaranteed consumer flows, this is not something what we're going to help you with. For us, an individual, a disabled person, person is the main actor in this scheme. Yes, and we hope that the information environment that we provide will provide us with this possibility of shaping proper strategy for several years to come. And I believe if the manufacturers invest into marketing, if manufacturers and commercial companies will provide the information to consumers, and we are talking about a very large group, 1.5 million people, and you alone will not be able to satisfy their needs. And but there are many manufacturers as well, and yes, there will be competition for consumers, and this is the advantage of the system. Many manufacturers try to understand all the details, tricky details of Federal Law 44, but what does a consumer need? Consumer needs just a product that will help him to rehabilitate. Well, if you want to launch your product, you need to prove that this is a product the consumer needs. Yes. Additionally, we will get a large-scale system for analysis, and retrospectively, we will be able to analyze the statistics on supplying the product. We will be able to do statistics per region and provide this information to the manufacturers, to all stakeholders, and it will be a good tool for managing the system. Yes, and we would like to. We have a bit time left for Q&A session. And also I would like you to do a quick survey. I kindly ask you to open the app, take your phones, and if you go to the app, you will see a window called Survey, right? And the first question for the survey will be provided if you enter 4-digit code 7875. So what would you like to find out from you? Today we talked about quality control of rehabilitation products. Of course, it's clear that when the product is supplied, for instance, through a tender, we understand who is in charge of quality. But think of a consumer who came to a company who bought a product through a catalog, and but something goes wrong. What agency should act as a point of control? Whether it should be Federal Agency of Medical Social Assessment, Roszdravnadzor, or Rospotrebnadzor, or the sellers? Let us vote. But if it is Rospotrebnadzor, then it is a classical scheme. If you buy a product and that product happens to be out of water, or the quality is not satisfactory, or it was damaged during shipping, then Rospotrebnadzor will be in charge. Mikhail, you as a future consumer, what did you vote with? I voted for medical social expertise because they need to understand what helps the person get back to normal life, because this is the agency that handles complaints. If the person is unhappy, it should get back to this agency, and and they need to understand what is going on with the patients and what makes them unhappy or happy. Quite many of you do not understand their role because you're all somewhat different audience. But since this is the agency that develops the rehabilitation program, they must understand whether in the end it was efficient or not. Here, on one hand, we talk about relations between the seller and the consumer, and this is handled by Rospotrebnadzor, consumer surveillance agency. It doesn't matter what we buy, clothes, shoes, or rehabilitation products. All this relation is regulated by this agency. But when it comes to managing to handling the catalog and we understand that for certain disability you need a particular product. When we talk about, let's say, a comfort of using a certain wheelchair, you need. This is a question that should be addressed to the medical social assessment agency. And on one hand, we talk about the control of the quality or on efficiency of the tool.
There should be a third party, the Roszdravnadzor, the Russian healthcare monitoring agency. They also somehow control the situation. We see that there is different people understand quality in different ways. How you can say that a product is of good quality? Some people are talking about standards. It's just an internal conflict when it comes to the interpretation of the term quality. But we need to here specify roles of each actors of the process. So talking about the Socio-Medical Assessment Commission, we're talking about the quality programs. Roszdravnadzor is responsible for the certification of products, make sure that products meet all the necessary requirements. And the Rospotrebnadzor, Russian Consumer Rights Agency, should resolve any conflicts that might rise in the process. But what about the manufacturer and the supplier? And dear colleagues, there is another survey that we need to go through, because when we held different opinions when we were discussing the question before the plenary session. So the new code 2550 code 54. The code is 2554. I'll explain why we started discussing this question. We all want to provide good suppliers and manufacturers to consumers, because these companies should be ready to provide services for such category of people. We should provide electronic catalog. Companies should be also ready that visually impaired persons might come to their shop. So the question is how we can guarantee consumers that commercial company will provide the best services for them. So you can see there are different answers. Our traditional way, there will be a special federal body that will set the requirements. They will pay a visit to the company, and employees of the company will make sure that they meet all the necessary requirements. The second option is freedom. I'm a commercial company. I know all the rules. I want to take part in the project. I'm going to act in good faith, and that's enough. And I'm going to provide all the necessary software. I will connect it to the information system of electronic certificates. And if Andrei Kagim will make a promise, then I will use a Yandex map. No one visits me. As for the cleaning in the facility, only I am responsible for it. As for the people working in the company, I'm responsible for them. So here we need to make. We can only hope that these companies will act in good faith. And the third option is that the citizens rule. They say that they know certain companies. They have visited some of them because they have bought some of their products. The fourth option is competition. Companies will submit applications, and we will decide who is the best, who is the first, and who should never provide their services to people. And Another option, another choice, which is the most important and crucial one. If you are a commercial company, you have a shop and you sell rehab systems that are mentioned in the electronic catalog, you should be ready that at any moment such consumer might visit you, and you should be ready to adjust all the systems. By fulfilling the task, you must be ready. Then consumers will understand that, well, this shop is really reliable when it comes to buying rehab systems, and customs and these companies, they know that they're connected to the system of the Federal Treasury, and they have done everything that is required. Did everyone vote for the survey? Well, we're still thinking, because what I see, there are two options that are leading. Oh, I understand what's wrong. Well, actually, we see that our options are not organized in alphabetical order, which is bizarre and strange. So you can see that the order of options have changed. Actually, I voted that any commercial company can take part in the project, because at the panel discussion we were talking about the catalog and the Federal Treasury that is in charge of the catalog. I think that the Federal Treasury will be responsible for filtering these companies who are reliable and who are not. We were talking about the software, and this software should be made in such a manner that only certified products are sold. So the certification is a part of digitalization, you know. So, judging from the mood of the audience, we need to make sure that any commercial company could take part in the project, but at the same time, this company should act in a responsible manner. But you can see that the third of the audience doesn't want to work with the supplier alone. So they want the state to be a broker in the situation. So just the state could determine a number of suppliers with whom consumers might contact and buying necessary products. So we shouldn't omit such option. By using information sources, we could involve the disabled community, who could provide feedback and rating of companies who sell their products. Dear colleagues, we have 1 or 2 minutes till the end of the panel discussion, because the agenda of the forum is quite busy. But we have enough to discuss, as you know. I have a final question to you, Anton. We have discussed schemes, but what are the deadlines? What is the timeline? What is the roadmap in taking a journey along this path? When are going to launch these projects? What about the legislation? So this is the final point of our discussion. We are working closely together with Grigory, who is the Deputy Minister of Labor and Social Development. We are developing a legislation. It was submitted to government, and when we're going to hear about the legislation at the State Duma, I think that you're going to hear about it at the autumn session. We're still agreeing on the text of the legislation with certain ministries and agencies. As for the legislation, we will launch the project in 2020 in a closed list of regions and the closed list of equipment. At the same time, we understand that we cannot start with establishing an information resource at the Federal Treasury because the legislation is still not adopted by the Parliament. So we will submit again the legislation in autumn. We are working on the documentation. So once the document is adopted, together with the Federal Treasury, we start our work on the elaboration of the electronic register. We synchronize the timeline. We actually anticipated that we will submit the legislation to the State Duma in spring, but we had to postpone it. So I hope that we won't experience any other malfunctions and backlogs in our work. Thank you, dear colleagues. I hope that everyone in this room will have an opportunity to use electronic certificates to provide rehab systems for the disabled community starting from the July 1st, 2021. I hope that this discussion helped us to make several steps forward in our process. Thank you everyone for your attention and for your participation.